episode 5. We're I know we're back. Look, I know we're back
Hello,
earlier
everyone.
than expected, but there's just been so much going on that we felt like we needed to record and get everything out there before it becomes outdated because everything's just moving much, much faster than we even expected.
Yep. Yeah, just to keep things real, I actually moved in the middle of all of this, but haven't stopped being blown away by everything that's happened. I mean, people may or may not notice the change in my surroundings. It's just one white background is a different white background now, but moved into a slightly different neighborhood in Atlanta. Excited to be here. And very much committed to recording now as fast as we can keep up with this thing. I mean, I think Avyay and I both feel like we're going to be recording probably every other week now. The rate at which, just the sheer rate at which things are happening, it's crazy. So, yeah,
Yeah, I
welcome everyone.
mean, there's been a lot of development since we last recorded, and we were talking a lot about Claude Code and context gardening, and in those 2 weeks, we've actually done so much with that it's quite wonderful. But I think we'll start off by talking about we've actually got a website now, and you must have seen it if you follow us on social media and on YouTube. But we put it out there. The moving target.ai is now ours, and we built a website with all of our podcasts, our agents, everything in one place. It's got our shorts, it's got our comics, thanks to Sid. Yeah, going forward, that'll be our one-stop shop for everything moving targets related.
Yeah, I think by the end of this, we'll have a comic. We'll have enough to basically publish at least a 25 or 30 pager, if nothing else. So if you do nothing else, but you're getting this via short or your friends and family, and you are pressed for time, you can certainly go and look at the comics. But we think that you'll get a lot more out of just spending the time with us, because we really think that there's just so much to unpack right now. But yeah, super excited to be launching officially the moving target.ai today. I think we'll probably drop it again on our socials and LinkedIn. I'm certainly going to be blasting, all of my friends and family with an email, and I'm sure Abhya will be as well. So yeah, I think that's the big at least self promotion news from both of us. We have to do that, and we thought we'd get it out of the way as the first thing. Before we can get to
I
the
mean,
to the good
the
stuff.
the best thing about it is that we built it completely with AI, and the journey of how we built it was quite amazing. We explored different tools. We tried something new the day it came out, and it was quite amazing how it worked. And it gave us a little bit of understanding of exactly where the limits lie with some of these tools, what is good, what is bad, how to actually you know come up with stuff to create a website, and the importance of being open enough to try everything. I mean, that day we just tried this platform called Kimi, and I'm sure you've heard of Kimi K 2.5 now. It's the largest open source model available, and their own platform and their own harness with Kimi Code, their agents, their website, the slides, everything is wonderful, and I think it's much much ahead of any of the other frontier labs in terms of what it can generate. And using not just Kimi but Claude Code and a lot of our knowledge, we were able to build the website from the ground up in 2 days with not that much work. I mean, most of it was our editing of it, but the broad design aspect or not, that was handled by the agents. And the prompting we gave it and the way we orchestrated them to work on this, but it was very interesting.
Yeah, and that's very true. And I think what we both found in sort of playing around with Kimi over the last, I would say, 3 weeks, is that they have managed to combine the best of chain of thought reasoning with the best image generation models uh, to come up with sort of some amazing products. I mean, there's a Kimi slides, which I don't know if any of the other GPT providers actually have. which Avyay started using, and showed me, and I started using since, and I've been blown away, truly blown away. This is not even like a competition. This is like, if GPT is like junior high or kindergarten, and Gemini with Nano Banana is like, I don't know, middle school, then getting a slide, Kimi K2 with slides is like using a graduate,
It's
right? A
unbelievable.
university graduate.
It's unbelievable.
It,
Like the quality of slides you can
Sorry?
generate is something people would pay thousands of dollars for. And it
Exactly. I think it's not even a
it's like a
comparison. It's not even
professional.
a
You've got
comparison.
actually, it's
It's
like
it's
you've
a
got a professional harness, and I mean, it's not just the slides; it's the way it builds the features in the slides, the way it captures the workflow, and it the way it reasons at every point before it uses the image generation models, right? Where what happens traditionally with image generation models is they don't have a reasoning layer attached to them, so they're just generating based
yeah,
on one thing. Whereas when you add this reasoning layer, and why it's so powerful is because it's reiterating the context at every single step, right? So it is like collaboration
yeah.
rather than just a single model, which is what makes it so powerful. And just showing us that basic level agents also can be amazingly powerful.
Absolutely. And I think it's also it's the deep seek moment. I mean, there's another deep seek moment that maybe we'll get to right at the end of this call, because literally you found out about it today. But DeepSeek last year, remember, famously caused every single one of the frontier model companies' stocks to or valuations to crash, because they had created this, a mixture of expert type frontier model. I've forgotten what it was called. I don't even know. I don't even remember what it was. Yeah, DeepSeek R1. And it was basically all about saying we don't need to create a billion or a 5 billion or a 100 billion parameter model and train it for, with hundreds of millions of text or image documents, literally the entire internet. We'll scrape the entire internet and make it the most amazing generalist, when all we really need to do is to create specialized agents, or at that time it was just models, and have them, you know coordinate amongst each other really well. So they showed the way for, I think, and they're still doing it better in my view than a lot of companies here, with the exception of Claude Code, which we'll get to in a second. Um, they're doing this kind of work better than any one of the US based companies, in my opinion, right? And the
I
proof's
mean,
in the pudding.
I mean,
The if you need to make slides today, you can't do anything better than Kimi K2
it's
with
unbelievable.
slides. It's
And
just
the thing
unbelievable.
is that what we've realized is that, all of these tools, the way we use them, the prompting, the actual application, what actually is happening and what labs should lean more into, which I don't think they're doing as much apart from Anthropic, is specialization. Like what Kimi does with the UI, with the
Yeah.
slides, with all of this stuff, and what it did with the website tool. I mean, it's unbelievable. If they lean more into that, right, and they say we are no matter how good our model is, like Kimi K2 is the most used on Open Router. It's the number one model on Open Code. So it's the most used model in the world right now by developers, by enthusiasts. Not the average consumer, but by the specialized people who are in the world of AI, right? And hardcore AI users. And the reason is it's a very, very good model.
Yeah.
And they've done a very good job. And the real wake up moment is not in what people are actually using it for, but the slides, the website, the UI, the agentic features that they built into their own harness on Kimi.com. And right now you can bargain it down to 99 cents and get it for 1 month for 99 cents. And I think everybody should just try
Yeah.
it. I mean, it's a lab to support. I mean, there are concerns, everybody has concerns that your data is going, but I'm saying they have too much data anyway. They're not going through everything. They'll probably just train another model. Right. So it's
Y- And if you're of Indian origin, and of a certain pedigree like I am, just doing it and remembering that what you're really doing is essentially negotiating with a Chinese. An Indian is trying to negotiate with the Chinese to bring the price down. That's a Russell
yeah.
Peters. bit right there, and you're actually doing it in real.
It's
I got a laugh out of that. Anyway, so if you go check out Kimi and try to negotiate it down. Avyay is a better man than I am. He's got more persistence. So I brought my first month down from 1999 down to about 399.
I was like,
Avyay did better
I
than
was
I did.
adamant I was not going to
He
let it win. I even tried to I tried to get
he
it.
wasn't gonna let the he wasn't gonna let the
No, no,
Chinese
I thought
win. He kept going. He's one of those guys who are not gonna leave until he gets the best
I'm
deal.
telling you,
So
I was trying to get it for free. I don't want to pay the 99 cents either. But they were like 99 cents is the bottom price. So I was like, okay. Now I wouldn't mind paying $20 for it.
yeah, spoken like
Now
a
I wouldn't
true
mind paying $20 for it. It's unbelievable. Like
yeah.
what we've done.
No. That's the thing. Yeah, that's the oh shit moment, right? The idea that we were sort of haggling over this price, and now we realize that we're actually getting hundreds of dollars worth of value out of it. That's truly the the mind-boggling moment of everything. So I think yeah, truly eye-opening a couple of weeks for us. We, I think, want to spend a lot of our time talking more about the way that I'm doing my work. And again, I'm a software engineer with about 35 years of 30 plus years of experience. How I don't think my profession is going to survive or not survive. It's not going to be the same, and there's no going back, right? Like literally no going back in this era because of Claude Code and agents like it.
Okay.
We really should
And
jump into that.
yeah, I mean, one final thing before we jump into that, we've got our agent Maria live on the Moving Target website. So we'd love for you to see it. And, by the time the episode drops, there'll be more instructions on how to use it and what exactly it does. And, we hope you guys enjoy what we've built, and how we built it is now what we're coming on to. And I'm going to let Sid start off with Claude Code because he's been using it a lot longer than I am. And we're both Claude
Yeah.
Max users now. So,
Well, it's all relative. I've only been using it longer by a few weeks, but that really does feel like a few lifetimes now. So again, if you listen to our last episode, I couldn't stop. You couldn't shut me up about Claude Code. I think like a lot of people like me, of us again, people that are sort of you know developers, builders in their own right. When you encounter something like Claude Code, you essentially have sort of two reactions, I think. The first reaction is, oh my God, is this truly going to replace me? And I think if you're able to basically get past that initial sort of fear, you realize, oh my God, this is a genie. This is like a magic wand. This is everything I've always wanted, but never had. This is a collaborator that never sleeps, that is always 100% eager, has no motivation problem. If you're a manager, who's managed engineers before, you'll know that you have to sort of, you have to work, you have to have some sort of soft skills to get the best out of people. Uh, I'm not saying that you won't need skill to get the best out of Claude Code, but you will really only be limited only by your imagination when it comes to Claude Code. So I think Claude Code is unbelievable. It keeps getting better. It keeps getting it. It hasn't stopped uh, surprising me with its sort of emergent abilities. I've certainly reached. We are going to talk about the things that it still doesn't do well. I mean, we've not broken it, but we've basically started to get. We've pushed it to its limits, and we've seen it. It's come back sort of wanting there. But we'll come to that in a second. But what Claude Code can do now and what it should be used for is everyday coding. So either you have an existing code base, unless it's like a million lines and 5 years old or 15 years old. I would say anything that's been written reasonably modularly in a in a well documented way, any code base that's actually less than 5 years old, or even up to 10 years old, you could make an argument for effectively having Claude ingest all of it. or at least breaking it up into chunks
And I
that
think I
Claude can
found a
now
way, and I
sort of
think I found,
understand
with
and take.
our development and my use of Cloud Code, I found a way to actually break down older things. Like, you read a lot about it, and we using Cloud Code want to understand more about it, so we read a lot of the people who are using it, what their reviews are, what they say, and right now I think it's a lot of noise between Codex, Cloud Code, and whatever other coding agent people are using, just because of the sheer amount of code they're probably generating. But I think the way to use Cloud Code with Opus is you have to have some direction. And the most important thing is context, right? The reason why it's been good for us is because we have been meticulous in how we manage our context. Our commits, and we
Yes.
have good practices also. That is the reason why it's allowing us to make progress, right? Any change we make a commit. Any change we make, we look at the context, right? It's just become a habit. And Sid created something known as the context gardener. It's a skill for Claude Code, and we've improved it since to now work autonomously, which is really good. So now we found
You've
a
got
way together
yes.
to do it. It was a
Yes, yes,
collaborative
yes.
effort on getting to that, and it's very amazing how Claude understands that memory is important. It knows memory is important, and all it was lacking was a skill to be able to access its memory and visualize it. And when you can
Yes.
visualize the memory in different things, you have Claude.md, you have memory.md, all of these different memory files. All they're teaching you to do is to have instructions for your Claude, and that's how your Claude understands things. Your Claude context window maybe 272,000, but the actual memory sits in the Claude.md, right? So if you're not working on that, if you're not cleaning that up, if you're not looking at your memory.md, what standing instructions you have for your Claude code, and you're not practicing good things like Sid has taught me to commit every change, right? So you have a good point to back up to if you mess up. Because the first day we were doing this, we were building Maria, and I built everything and I messed it up, and then we started from scratch and we rebuilt it. But I mean,
Yeah.
since then, I've learned a lot. And
Yeah.
these last 2 days, I think I've become a power user. In burning.
Yeah. And I think in one of thank you. Thanks for that shout out. I think what we might have solved is this dilemma that somehow all these companies that are refusing to hire entry level engineers have this huge blind spot where they think that magically 5 or 10 years from now a whole crop of mid-level engineers will suddenly appear. It won't, right? That won't happen, right? You still need people to write and maintain your infrastructure, and maybe they won't be writing code 10 years from now, right? We don't know what they'll be doing, but you still need them to have uh, the know-how and the type of tips and tricks that I was able to, give to Avya so that now he knows how to operate. So like it's not enough for Avya to have a magic wand like Claude Code. He needs to know how to use it, like, which flick of the wrist is required, right? And so the mistake that a lot of companies are making is to say, oh, we're not going to hire any engineers, rather than realizing that all that's happened is that basically the time it takes for an entry level engineer to become a productive mid level engineer or a junior engineer has shrunk from 1 year to maybe
I,
1 month
I mean,
to maybe even a
what
week.
what what it's done for
Yes.
us is like the ability, like we had a vision, right? We knew exactly what we wanted to build, and with the good practices, without the good practices, I'm telling you, any harness, like, and any agent will not help you write better code. In that sense, the features we're building and how to test them, unit tests that we create, the testing every single thing in our own way,
Yes.
right? You have to be very, very specific with the tests. Claude will test it. Claude can build it for you. But if you don't know what you're looking for and how you're going to break it, you won't be able to build it, right? You need to know how to break it. You need to know its breaking points. If you're building a feature, you don't understand its breaking points, Claude can't tell you its breaking points. It can tell you what it understands, right? And that is the context it has. Now, like we were working on a feature and Claude built it, but it left certain things out because to it did sense, but for us it was common sense,
Yes.
right? And that gap something which AI cannot just infer, right? It's something which is in your head, which is something you're taught, or something you understand in a certain way. Instill that into AI, you would have to write it into the Claude.md, or you'd have to write it into something, right? And you can't write every single thing that you're expecting it to do into the Claude.md. So if you don't know how, and if you don't understand, like, okay,
So
let's say we build a button, right? I know what that button is supposed to do. And I have in my head how I would want that button to work. But Claude only understands maybe two out of the three things I want the button to do. Right? If I click the button, it's turn off, turn on, and then should be standby mode as well, right? But Claude automatically won't infer the standby mode because I haven't
yeah,
told it, right? And I'm thinking in a different parallel than Claude. It's smart.
I think so. Yeah, and I think this you bring up a really good point. I think uh, it's important for so Claude. I'm sure there's a instruction manual for how to use Claude Code, but very few people are actually following that. There's obviously a whole bunch of videos out there for how to get the most out of Claude Code. We don't want to position ourselves as one of those folks, and I don't think that's not the aim of this podcast. This podcast is more about sharing what we've learned so you can go figure it out, right? So you can go and Google. So the two things that I think both Avyay and I have found to be super useful is subagents. Subagents are critical, right? This is all really, again, at the end of the day, it's a continuation of that context. So remember that no matter how good Claude is, at the end of the day, it is still bound by that 200K context window. Okay. And the one thing the second or third day that I started using Claude, I modified my status bar, and so did Avya soon, to see exactly where I was on that percentage, right? So I found in practice that the minute I start to cross the 40% or 50% threshold, which means that I've already used up 50% of my main the orchestrator agents context window, I can start to see a subtle
Yes.
degradation in performance. And this goes back to sort of context slop, right? Basically, context rot, whatever you want to call it. I've got overgrown context. It's time for me to do my context gardening. So two things that we've now the rules to live by, at least today in whatever Feb 12th, 2026, is use subagents, which means you have to create a bunch of subagents. And this is also a little bit of an art, more of an art, less of a science. You decide, you are the best position to say, I need to create a subagent to do these three things, right? So I have a because we're creating apps that we debug locally and then deploy onto AWS. I have at least two agents. I have an agent that I call my local dev runner, which is basically I say, look, you're the expert at running everything locally, so you know how to bring stuff up locally, and just make sure that you're able to debug it without making any impacts onto either the cloud. Then there's the AWS expert that says that knows how to basically download and install the AWS dependencies. So as a developer, you know how many agents you need, but the high level feedback from us to you is use sub agents. Part one, part two, be merciless about pruning your context, and you'll be a much happier person. And the third thing, which again was not obvious to me, is smaller claude.md files sitting inside your subfolders is
Much
actually
better thing, yeah.
almost a better thing. So essentially, always better to have your context spread out across a bunch of places and have Claude only bring it into its context window when it needs to. So it's sort of like a just-in-time
100%.
context
And what we found is,
sort
like,
of.
for example, we have a thing called our agent. Okay, it's our agent, which is Maria. And in that folder, we are actually sharing a Claude.md. And what we do is every time we push the Claude.md and the changes are made, right? So when is working on something and I'm working on something and we're working on it completely separately, I know that every change I made, and because Sid is also going to view it, I make sure that the Claude.md is clean. It's very clean. It has only what is required and it has the latest updates, right? And what this tool that Sid's made, and it's available to everyone, and I'll put it in the description. It's called a context card, and it's from Sid's open source thing called Let's Confab, and it's great. It's amazing, right? Because it lets you review the context, prune it, and it handles every part of the context, the memory.md, the claude.md. So it knows what your whole agent is doing as Claude Code, and then it knows what Claude Code is doing in that one folder, whether claude.md it or the working directory. So overall, the the best thing to do is, first thing I would suggest when you get Claude Code, if you haven't used it already, is get the context gardener, make some sub agents, and make sure the first couple of things you're doing is opening it in the right directory because we opened it in our main a couple of times and then it messes stuff up. Create a new folder, open it in that, and just
Yeah.
make sure when you pull code from GitHub or set up a GitHub, but have somewhere where you have a backup, right? So if you create something, back it up and then add more stuff to it. Because if you keep going,
Yeah, I do. I do. You do bring up a really good point, and I want to stress this. Claude is still very much makes a lot of implicit assumptions about what you want it to do based on where you invoke it. Remember, Claude is just a command line system. It's like it's like a genie, and and it's really like depending on where you rub your genie, lamp, it'll have a slightly different context. So when you're in a folder which is your top level folder, like your desktop folder, and you ask it to do stuff, it'll start going and indexing your entire desktop unless you're careful, right? And you'll start to eat up your context that way. So again, what we found in practice is I definitely, and I'm sure Avyay does this as well, is that I have 4 or 5 windows open and I have a
yes,
separate instance of Claude running on each of them. So I have really 4 different Claude agents. And by the way, we don't have time for it and we've not really tested it out. But 2 days ago, literally 2 days ago, Claude did a preview or a release.
names.
They call it a research preview at this point uh, of Claude agents. So it's literally this whole notion of, and I'm sure they're getting feedback from their user community, which is why they're doing it. Of how do we get these disparate Claude
Yeah.
instances to talk to each other? They've sort of solved that problem. I haven't used it yet. It's only 2 days old, so maybe by the time we are talking
Well,
recording in two
I
weeks'
don't know.
time, I'll be an expert
I
or I'll
mean,
have a
I
strong
think
opinion on.
right now where we are at the point in everything, I mean, people might not want to spend. The one benefit of this is also having clean context and having a clean conversation, having a clean Claude.md. Make sure that your usage doesn't spike right at the start. Because as soon as you start Claude and it's ingesting context, if your Claude.md is too big and it has too much to ingest, 30% of your usage is gone, right? And I'm talking about that the max plan, right? Where you have five
That's right.
times more usage. So you have to be very.
Well, 30%
No,
of your
no, the
context is,
usage, online
we should be
usage.
clear.
So
So
I
your
went to the
context
usage
is
on
gone, not
Claude
your use.
today, and when I started my thing, because I hadn't cleared everything, it took 30% of 5 hour window, and that's on the max
Right.
plan, right? So I was like, okay, because I'm ingesting the whole code base again because I made a lot of changes, and I wanted it to everything there. But I'm
That's
saying
right.
people can run into this just, and with a pro plan, with a $20 plan, you can try it out. But you know for that money, and we'll get on to the next thing, which is Kimi Code. I'd say you should give Kimi Code a try because it's 99 cents. It's quite good. And what we found it is that is a very good front end developer.
Yeah, I think Kimi Code is again. So we promised you we'd get to. This is not just about telling you how amazing Claude Code is. We are definitely fanboys, but there are also limits to what Claude Code can do. Claude Code, and I think any sort of I mean, I've only used Claude Code. Obviously, I've used GPT in the past and Codex and cursors, but not cursors, composer models. And I haven't used GLM. I've used a little bit of open code, but that was a sort of a hacked version of open code that used Opus under the covers. Um, anyway, the bottom line is backend development, because it's inherently command line based and it's using just textual interfaces, is a lot easier and obviously databases and backend. Claude Code just is a no brainer, absolute no brainer. Right? Like literally, you there is no reason not to use Claude Code. because it's so good. It's stupendous. It's like it's incredibly good. It's literally the smartest back-end engineer you've ever worked with.
I
Okay.
honestly believe
On
one
the
thing about
other,
it is that the model in the harness is very, very close to, and benchmarks, and we've seen this like Codex and all of these other things have come out with your point. I found Codex unusable. No matter what it says on a benchmark, I found Codex unusable. It kind of just ruined everything. I mean,
we are like the wire cutter. So wire cutter is these guys in from the New York Times who test out things so you don't have to. So Avyay banged his head
gone.
against the
It's
Codex
gone.
CLI, so you didn't have to. He uninstalled it. If you are.
I mean, and I used like between yesterday and today. I mean, in the last 2 days, with I mean the amount of development we've done on our end. I mean, I've used Claude Code and gone through millions of tokens in the last 2 days. And the one thing is, I can use Claude Code. I even used Kimi Code for a couple of million tokens, hit the usage limits. But I could not use Codex, and Codex was just so, I don't know. It felt dumb to me. It might score well in benchmarks, might one
Yeah.
shot features for people, but the continuous development felt so sluggish. It felt so sluggish. It's like,
Yeah, it's not something you can use in production, in my view. I think again, I've now realized that Claude Code is it's not $100 that you're spending on an expensive subscription. It's 1/10 or 1/20th what you would spend on a really, really good engineer, right? So, and it's always available with a max plan. You can probably get about 8 hours of usage out of it every day, and not blow your plan. So that's the shift that everyone has to make. Again, we are not at all about replacing or firing people. We'll get to the where we think this is going. Maybe not on this episode, but in one of the following episodes. But I will say that um, just to close out what I was saying about Claude Code's limitations, right? Again, we're not just fanboys. Claude Code is not doing really well right now with front end code that was generated by another agent. So I haven't yet. I bet you it's pretty good at basically debugging its own front
I
end
think
code
Sid,
because well, it
but what I
generated it,
found
right?
is that the
Maybe
the the the, the main thing is, yeah, I think you guys had used it with Figma Make, and this was Sid had done it in a different project. But I'm saying when I did it
yes,
with Kimi's
yes,
front end code, it was brilliant. And I think that might be because of the underlying agent that Figma is probably using and the code it's generating, right? And I found that Kimi, even though and Kimi, like
that's
that's what we're
probably
coming
true.
to. That Kimi
That's probably
2.5 created beautiful front ends, and we gave it very simple prompts to create front ends. So, I mean, I might have a lot more context because I was working.
yeah,
It was in my working directory for
yeah,
quite a long time when I was adding features and stuff. But the understanding and the way it built the front end UI was quite amazing. And I'm saying that it might not wire the back end stuff nearly as good as Cloud Code, but the front end, the way it creates the UI, it creates the logic for it, and on your existing code base, just to beautify it into with your UI, I think Kimi was brilliant, and Claude is very good at dealing with
yeah,
Kimi's actual generated code. That's what we found.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I agree, 100% agree, and I think for me the lesson is uh maybe that it's a very obvious one. Again, once you internalize it, you're like, of course, this is so obvious. But the one thing I'm not going to do is give code generated by one sort of agent class or family, right? So clearly Figma Make is proprietary. They don't want to release
Yeah,
it. They just want it to be magical, right? So
like
Figma Make is
Avyay, it
amazing,
makes
right?
really nice
Figma Make
UIs.
is
Yeah.
nice. I love it. It's yeah, it's really good at sort of basically creating front ends based on simple prompts. It's definitely got a very nice niche there because what it then lets you do is to just basically export all of that as TypeScript with CSS and HTML. So that's really amazing and powerful. What unfortunately ends up happening is, as we've seen, that doesn't translate in as well into other agents like Claude taking that code and being able to debug it properly. So another one of our collaborators who we're going to have, on the show soon, he was like, I wish there was an interoperable standard that describes front ends, and I'm blown away. And again, I'm not a front end guy, and maybe some person, one of our listeners, will say, no, why aren't you using this? But there is no spec. Like basically, when you define an API is fully defined
Yes.
with what's called the Swagger doc, right? Swagger open API specification. It's up to it's like fifth or sixth or 2.6 or 2.7. It may even be at version 3.0. What's funny and interesting is front ends don't have the similar sort of language. And so in the absence of that, what I think is a better use of everybody's time is to say, this is a nice UI. I'm going to just basically have Claude Code define, like completely specify this in a markdown file. And then I'm going to actually have it
Yeah.
generate the front end for me with its own logic. And I think it saves you, it might take a little longer, but it'll actually save you a lot of pain in the future. So if you've decided that Claude Code is your buddy, then I would say don't have it inherit. It can probably inherit a lot of code from other people. Backend code, you can give it any backend code and it'll sort of make it its own. It's still not that good at basically taking other people's front end code and sort of making it its own. What I think it's good enough to basically take the front end, turn it into a full specification, and then just have it uh, spew out its own version of that front end, right? So it's like you've done this so many times. I mean, you're the master
Yeah.
at
I,
basically
I
having
basically
different GPT generate specs here, create the image,
Yes, so I'll
iterate.
give a
So
little bit of
you know
background
how
into
this works.
my workflow on how we created, a UI for a project of ours. I used Figma Make first to come up with the UI, right? It wasn't the prettiest UI, and it was good, but and then I got GPT to break it down because I was trying Codex, trying all of these different agents. I got GPT to break it down into its bare bones, into just every single aspect of it defined in a Markdown file. I gave that markdown file to GPT to create the UI then. I said, now that you've broken it down, create it yourself. GPT wasn't able to do it. I gave it to Kimi. Kimi was able to do it. But what I found the most out beneficial out of all of these things in creating the UI was just telling Kimi what I wanted and saying, this is my project, this is the understanding, this is the theme. The similar way you would put it into Figma Make, like what you would tell Figma Make. But if you but the difference was Kimi has access to your whole working directory. It understands every single flow that you have in there, right? So it's understanding the back end, which is amazing. So it has back end knowledge, but it has the front end ability. It might not be as good as back end ability as Opus, but it is very, very, very good at the front end development. And it just makes very good looking things. And Sid tried it with a simple prompt, and I tried it with a simple prompt and a complicated prompt. But the simple prompt actually worked amazing. It gave you what you were expecting in terms of a good looking UI based on your theme.
Yeah, but I think the core lesson that I've learned from you and obviously from dealing with Kimi is that front end, you can be vague when you're defining. Um, Either you can be so vague that you essentially just give the whole thing free reign. I mean, if you're vibe coding something and you're showing something off and say, look, I want you to make a game for me that has the following three aspects. You can be vague because then you're sort of giving it free reign. On the other hand, if you have a very clear vision of what you want and you've used Figma Make or some existing image or tool to generate that, if you then want to turn that into a production grade system, you're better off breaking it down into a spec and then having that spec pass through the generation engine of the coding agent
Yeah,
that you want to eventually use in production. So
yeah,
if you're
exactly
using
as you're
T,
saying. You need to be very like your spec needs to be very specific, and I think this is also another lesson in better prompting, right? I mean, you're using all of these harnesses, you're using all of these things, and what?
yes, yes, yeah. Well, it's all context,
Oh,
right? At the end of the
yeah.
day, it's the context. It's the context, stupid. So it's literally literally is all about the context. And what we found is not only does context start to collapse, there's context rot and all that other stuff, but even the littlest thing can make a difference, right? And obviously these are non-deterministic system. The one thing that I found um, both sort of annoying and amazing was when I asked, I use Kimi K2 slides to make a bunch of presentations. Each of those presentations blew, my potential customers away. They were like, "How did you make these slides so quickly?" But I think what was interesting about all of that was when they would ask me to make a few changes to the slide, and I regenerated
Yeah.
the slides would come out completely different because these are all images that are made out of prompts. I know that you've figured out how to even fix that, which has basically become so precise in your definition of the image that uh, successive iterations of your prompts of your outputs
Yeah,
actually don't change
I
that
define
much.
it down
So
to the
there is
pixel. So
ways to
I
fix it.
say that
You literally define it onto the pixel. So of course that's available. That option is available. But if like me, you're not as you're lazy and you don't want to go all the way. It's actually still amazing to have the slides or any of these image generation tools generate multiple uh, variations of the same theme, right? Like you basically can say a prompt can be
yeah,
interpreted in
anytime.
four
Yeah.
different ways, especially visual prompts. So and all of them are great, so anyway, so that's a bit of a digression, but I feel like yeah, Kimi, I think again is one of those things which we are keeping in our back pocket. We're using it definitely. I'm continuing to use it as uh, again, like I think I'm going to do this now every time. We will take an informal poll amongst ourselves, right? So I over the let's say out of 100% of my time with AI, I've spent over the last 2 weeks. I've been 90% Claude, maybe 5% Kimi, and 3% Gemini, and or maybe 2.5% Gemini and 2.5% GPT.
I
That's
think
where I'm
my
at.
last week, I just got into Claude Code the start of this week, and I think it lasted 1 day on my pro plan and they gave me $50 free credit, and I ran through those. I don't know. I've been enjoying developing with Claude Code, and I think pushing features like it just it's like
But you're probably also in the same boat as me, right? I mean, you probably use GPT a little bit more than I do because I think you use it to
no, I've
generate a
stopped
lot of your
completely.
prompts.
I've just
Uh,
moved completely to Kimi. I mean GPT I haven't been using, and I think the Kimi
wow.
output, like GPT online or
Okay.
the web, is only medium. The GPT medium is not as good as Kimi K 2.5. So I mean, you're getting the full fat model. And if I've got
Yeah.
the subscription,
Very
I might as
interesting.
well use it. I use it in CLI as well. I've got the Kimi code instance running. So I mean, it does. The one beautiful thing about Kimi code, which we have, is it lays it out in the CLI beautifully. Like it makes everything so descriptive. It's unbelievable. You've seen this, right, Sid? Where it just makes
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. No. No. I agree. I agree. No. I think it's very interesting times we're living in. Kimi is definitely giving us a lot of food for thought. We will continue to evaluate and use, I think, at least three, maybe four, providers until there's a clear winner. It's not quite like the early days of the search engine wars, because the search engine wars were just, you know, uh, a lot of shitty search engines that everybody had to use, and Google, right? So Google came and just changed the game for everybody, and it's never been the same. Cloud Code is maybe like that, but I don't think it's too early to call the battle as being won, because like I said, it's not that great at front end development yet. It's got its limits. It can get a bit, it can get stuck sometimes. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely onto a very early
and
lead.
with that we'll probably move on to the next thing, which was quite important. Is something which has changed a lot is where you had data models and data structures, the importance of data models and data structures. And what we've come to find is that if you have enough inference and you have fast enough throughput with your inference and you get enough tokens per second, that can all be thrown out the window.
Yeah, I'll add a small caveat to that. Enough inference. and a really good reasoning
Yes.
agent. You need a good reasoning agent with a lot of chain of thought. With everybody is now using reasoning agents, so that's a given. But and the oh shit moment here that happened to us was last week. Was
No,
it
was that?
last
I
week
think
or
it was
maybe the
last
week
week.
before?
Yeah,
I can't remember. It was maybe
last
last
week.
week.
Yes,
It
last
was last
Thursday.
Thursday. Just 1 week. Just 1 week ago, we have found an inference provider which we're not going to name yet. It's a trade secret or it's a open secret.
I used Sid's mind.
But we will name them in
Sid
a
was
future
like,
podcast.
Sid was like,
It blew it blew everyone's mind. It was, I think we had Chat GPT
at
4.0
36,
mini or
37.
something with, I don't know, 512 36 37 TPS tokens per
We won't mention
second.
what
We were
the
still using a
token per
cloud
second
provider,
is,
and
but
we were getting
it's
decent performance.
I'll tell you what, it's a 32 billion parameter model, which is competing with a trillion, close to a trillion parameter.
32 billion parameter model, open source parameter model, right? So do the math, figure it out. We found this provider which is unbelievably cheap. We discovered that, again, we won't say who it is, but the reason we like them more than CoreWeave and others like them is that they actually built their own TPUs. So I would never use CoreWeave. I probably won't even use NVIDIA's cloud, but I
And
like these
this,
guys
and
because they're
this,
actually focusing on one
the
thing and
like
they're
the
doing it.
wow moment was Sid was, we were thinking of prompts and we were testing our agents, and Sid typed in a prompt and the answer was out before Sid could finish thinking about it. It was like that, and it was unbelievable. I mean,
Yeah, it was. I think for us,
I
yeah, it
mean,
was
the
amazing.
thing was,
Go ahead.
we had all these reasoning. We had these rules where when inference is slow, we had to make sure that it was not taking too long, that the reasoning wasn't there. There were all these graphs built in, that the data was, completely properly sorted. And then, I mean, this came and we were like, you can just, and I understand why brute force exists. Imagine, I'm telling you, they probably, the labs like Anthropic have this kind of throughput on Opus. Imagine this kind of throughput on Opus, what they can develop. They're probably running it at this.
Yeah, yeah. I think what it brought home to me was there are some things that having a lot of throughput allow you to do that you couldn't do before. So, um, context gardening and everything that we've talked about, notwithstanding, those are still important things to do because it's still important to basically, be efficient. I mean, at the end of the day, we want everybody, to be good stewards of the earth, right? And remember, a lot of throughput means a lot of power. A lot of power means you're basically burning up a lot of electricity, and that's it's not coming for free. We haven't become a civilization that can actually
Yeah,
harness all
exactly.
the solar energy that we get. We're still burning fossil fuels. Bottom line is, um, it's a game changer for many reasons, but I think as a designer of agentic systems, I would pay a lot of attention, and I will continue to do that in building and wrapping everything around an API, and then putting an MCP server around it, and being very sort of careful about the tools that I'm creating and the instances of the MCP servers I'm creating. Having said all that, with enough throughput, if I give enough primitives in an MCP server to a reasonably well, sort of designed instruct and a reasoning agent, like a large reasoning model, with enough throughput, this thing can brute force its way out of most things, right? And you obviously have to put safeguards into your code to prevent SQL injection and all the other things that can happen. But this is kind of another way of doing agentic app development, and it's new. It's probably going to take some development to happen. Clearly the guys that are behind this platform believe in it, because they're like, look, you don't know what throughput is until you've used the platform. And I have to say, I didn't know what throughput was until I used this platform, but boy, it blew
And
my mind.
what
It
it
truly
makes
blew
is
my
like,
mind.
what it teaches us is that the limitations on what an agent can do is a lot by the throughput. And our agents we created have
Yes.
are now doing things which we we knew how to implement them, but we knew it would be slightly tricky. And now this takes, it just makes it easier. But you still need to know exactly what and how to use this throughput, right? Where you're doing this. You can't be careless with tokens, you can't be careless with things because there are limits, right? And I mean, at the end of the day,
Yeah, I mean, I think the analogy in my head is it's like discovering that you have a jet engine that can make your plane fly at Mach 1 or 2. So of course the design of your plane will change, right? Like you can't build a propeller plane that's going to fly at Mach 1. And maybe the purpose of those things are different, right? Like you have one thing that's whose job is to basically just motor through some really, super critical, mission critical, time critical things, and you need throughput for that. So I think, yeah, the bottom line is pay attention to throughput. Throughput matters. You know, again, Avyay and I have basically swung from, we were running, Olama, Llamas and DeepSeek, not DeepSeek, Quen models on Olama instances inside G4DN EC2 instances, and being
yeah,
very
that we're
happy that
getting
we run
that
it.
we're getting
We're
like
running
30
it
tokens per
locally. Then I
second,
went,
and then now.
yeah. Then I think the last episode of last year we were like, oh my god, my MacBook M4, Pro with its Apple Silicon is amazing because it's got GPU and CPU together, and I think there's a place for everything. Throughput is, at 50 tokens per second, there is one type of application that makes sense. But then if you're talking about multiple orders of magnitude above that,
I
you
mean, you
can
can
create
do
a whole
stuff
new
which
class of
is unbelievable.
applications that
I
you
mean,
couldn't
the
imagine.
things I can do today because of throughput, and what you will get to experience when you look at Maria on our website, under the tab is
Yes.
the ability to use existing information to build whatever you want. And
Yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah.
goal of the moving target is to build useful agents and to fill gaps where, you know there wasn't agentic solutions possible before. Like now, it's becoming possible day by day, right? A month ago, you would have asked us, could we have done this in this way? I would have said no, right? Because it would have taken a completely different architecture. And now with this, it allows us to
Yes.
change the architecture into what we actually want, not what we're limited by. That's the learning. I think that it allows you to build what you want rather than what you need to build to get around some limitations.
100%. And I think, as we've already sort of started to mention, again, none of what we're saying is new. It's already being, I would say, socialized by the people that are actually using Claude Code and all these agentic coding tools in their day to day life. What both Abhya and myself and all of my other collaborators have realized is that the value is no longer in the actual code that's getting generated. Code is throwaway. Code is like object code now. Code doesn't matter. It's the specifications. So the markdown files are where the value is, and I think a new class of sort of uh, a new job description is going to start to come up, and we call it the context gardener. It'll probably be something similar to that, but at the end of the day, the context gardener's job is to make sure that the actual thing that's generating the code, or essentially in this case the thing that's going to generate the value for the organization, that's going to be the agent. It'll be some sort of coding agent, that's running on top of a substrate, that's driven by throughput, which means that you're dealing with tokens, total tokens used. Keeping those token usage numbers down and keeping a clean context is beneficial for everything, right? Like, because on the one hand, if you're using, if you have a token per second that's 5 times or 10 times or 100 times more, and you give it clean context, it's able to
Yeah,
accomplish a whole
and
lot
the thing
more,
is, you can go get up
right?
the hills very quickly.
That then if you give
With
it
this, the
crap.
faster the throughput, the more
Sorry.
you mess up. You can be quick at getting stuff done, but you can be quick at messing things up very, very.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Yeah. 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 That goes without saying. So if you are, if you're driving a Ferrari, you
Yeah,
can do a lot more damage
but I
than if
think
you're
I
driving
think
a,
as
uh,
we
like,
develop, and what we found is that a lot of the useful AI is starting to show up. And the disruption we thought was going to happen a couple of months later is happening a lot quicker. Because I mean, what we're able to do with these models, and hopefully you guys will be able to do as well. And we say, I think just get Claude Code CLI, just jump on it and try and build something. And if you get stuck, reach out to us. We'll probably help you and get you started. But I think you guys just need to learn to use AI, and that's most important thing. And that's where the industry is going. And I think it won't replace software engineers because software is still everywhere. It won't actually it'll actually improve their job in a lot of ways because the learnings they have, the knowledge they have is more important. Like the way Sid can use Claude Code is because of all of his knowledge. He understands the good practices, the hygiene, how to maintain context, how to run an application, what it's supposed to be. And that is why his knowledge being passed down to me as well, we're able to use it in a much more efficient way. Everybody will not be able to use these tools no matter how good they are in a very efficient way unless you have knowledge of good practices and of what is important. And I think as you use these tools and you make mistakes, you will learn. You're not going to learn without that, even if we give you all the advice we can and share our secrets. Until you mess up quite a few times and you break something and you forgot to commit it and then you have to recreate it and then the UI isn't coming out the same. But at the end of the day, just make sure your floor.md is clean. You context garden with context gardener available on the Let's Confab GitHub, and we can we can help you
Yeah.
guide you because what we found is that you do a little development with these AI agents, and that's where you learn. You don't learn their actual abilities, the limits, and what is actually going on in the world. And at this point, you're not too late to get in. You may be maybe behind, you may not understand everything, but you need to start using these tools and you need to start leveraging these tools because I understand people have skills and people have skills that they want to hold on to. And they think that, let's say somebody making slides. You know, I worked in consulting. I used to make slides, but I would never touch a physical slide again if it can do it this well. Right. And we have to start understanding that we can use them as tools to enhance features of ourselves as well. Right. You have the ability to architect something, you put it into a
Yes.
model, create a plan, and use that plan to use a coding agent to, you know, execute it. And then you can use leverage other things to come together. But the main takeaway from this episode I want to give people is that we've actually learned that AI is very useful and it's saving you money and it's saving you time, right? So the one learning that we would like to pass on is please start using these tools. I would suggest getting a Kimi subscription. It's only 99 cents for the first month. If you can haggle it down to that, it's not that hard. uh, and get Claude.
It is for most people. Maybe not for you. Maybe
But
not.
I'd say get these tools going, understand what AI does, or how AI is powerful, and you know, don't get overwhelmed. It's not as once you start getting into it, you're like, okay, this is it. I mean, there's surely more. You'll be surprised. It's about how you use it, not how much is there, and that's what you know.
Very much, very well said. Yeah, I would only say I'll add and double down on what you said. It is firstly not too late to start because remember this stuff is less than 5 years old. And since when did you ever consider anything that's less than 5 years old? Something that is too late to start, right? I mean, you didn't let the internet being 5 years old prevent you from becoming jumping into it. Internet is not, let's say, 25 years old or 26 or 27. People still are jumping into it and figuring out how to basically use it for their benefit. So any technology, no matter where the world is on the adoption curve, right? And I would say we are now sort of in the late early adopter phase, right? Like, so the people that are using Claude Code right now are not early adopters. I don't consider myself an early adopter. I would say maybe I'm a late early
Yeah, we
adopter
were
or an
quite. I
early
mean,
middle
Cloud
adopter.
Code has been out for a
Um,
while. I think just because
it's been a while. Yeah, yeah. And
November is when
again, like from our last call, the reason I chose it was because my AI sensei said, "You're not using Claude Code? Okay, come back to me when come back to me when you start using it. So I think, anyway, like I said, it's not too late. It's never too late. Number two is, as he pointed out, you will not learn anything unless you're doing it yourself. So don't expect to get um, your knowledge through tutorials or videos. Just download and start building shit. And and the best thing about these tools is that they are very forgiving. They're not judgmental. You can do whatever you want. They're always there to help, right? I mean, it's like learning to ride a bike. If you fall and scrape your knees, this bike literally will come and pick you up and put it back on you, and you can start running it. So it's truly one of those tools which helps you autocorrect. um, there is a danger of basically getting sucked into it. It's a bit addictive, as Avyay will point out,
Yeah,
especially when you
I
start
think
to
I'm
really
going too
into a
much
flow
into it.
state. I've had that happen to me a few times this year, this past few weeks, where I've just lost track of time. But it is an important skill, and I think we all need to become better at tending our context gardens, or orchards, as I call them, and prevent them from becoming context forests, overgrown. So yeah, that's it. That's really the
And
last word I have on
what I
this.
wanted to end
Avya,
off
you
by
have any
saying
last words?
is, guys, we started this podcast, and the reason we're here and we know all of this is because we started learning by doing. Right. So, I mean, we're just putting you on to the same journey as we got onto. N- Now we're building agents, looking to build agents for multiple different applications. But the one thing and it's our ethos. That's why we must, instill it on to you is please try it. And, I mean, it's the one piece of advice I can give you is if you need help, you can reach out to us. We're on LinkedIn, our emails are available, you know, and the thing is, tomorrow, the one regret you will have in the world of AI is why didn't I start sooner? And that's the only regret you will have because eventually it will be a part of your life. Your job will require it. And the thing is, jobs
That's
aren't
right.
disappearing, jobs aren't going to go away, they're going to transform. And if you want to, and the only way you will retain your position or excel or grow is through these tools. And, I'm not saying that we know everything. We don't, but we're going to keep learning through doing. And the moving target keeps on moving.
We'll be back. Hope probably in a few weeks. I don't think we can record any faster than that. But yeah, stay tuned. And I think the link to the webpage will be probably in one of our comments as well, for if you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify. I don't know if
I
Spotify
know
even
we'll do in the
has
description,
links.
so I can add it
I'm
there as
assuming
well.
it does.
I can add it
Uh,
there.
Good. Yeah. So watch out for the webpage. Please, like and subscribe us, and
See you soon.
see you
And
soon.
have a good week, guys. Bye.